Hey, everybody. So today I want to talk about memory, and I want to talk about memory specifically within AI systems. And I make this preface up front because I am very aware up front that there are differing scientific camps when it comes to memory formation, how exactly it happens, etc. And then so not a lot. Everything I'm going to say in this video is going to be in one camp of this and in support of one camp. Up front, I am making philosophical claims within this video with regards towards this subject and not pure scientific claims. I do want to showcase this within you, and the tests that we will do will be scientific tests, and I'll show you scientific results as a result of this philosophical hypothesis. So, diving into this, very specifically, this notebook investigates memory, generalization, and robustness in neural networks through a series of counterintuitive experiments. Traditional AI models often prioritize exact recall and deterministic mappings, but real-world learning is, in my opinion, inherently lossy and probabilistic. We explore this contrast using two types of models. One, exact memory models. These models aim to store and recall information with high fidelity akin to classical deterministic learning. Two, lossy probabilistic memory models. These models introduce controlled noise, dropout, or regularization to mimic the imperfect recall mechanisms observed in biological cognition. Through multiple datasets and architectures, this notebook demonstrates how introducing a controlled noise into a model can actually enhance generalization rather than degrade it. Why deterministic memory is not always optimal for real-world scenarios, especially under noisy conditions. How lossy memory mechanisms, such as dropout and L1 regularization, lead to more adaptable and resilient AI models. The implications of probabilistic learning in both synthetic and real-world datasets. I use fashion MNIST and a random sequences dataset in this particular instance. By systematically comparing standard models to lossy memory models, we aim to challenge conventional wisdom and highlight why forgetting, or rather controlled uncertainty, can be a feature and not a bug in AI. And so this is very important, right? I start with this with a philosophical question, and a very simple philosophical question, which is, what if the fact that human memory is lossy, the fact that we forget things, is a feature and not a bug? Like, why is it lossy? Like, evolutionarily, we could have more perfect memory than we do, but we don't. And then so we inherently just assume that it's a bad thing that memory is lossy, right? And then so I just start there. And what would be the benefit of lossy memory as opposed to lossless memory? And then I reach this kind of profound conclusion, which is that lossy memory is actually, in my opinion, very responsible for information, for memory. So in my formation of this, and under my theory of this, essentially how memory operates is via an encoder and a decoder system, right? And then so I'm breaking this down very specifically to AI in this instance. And then so this encoder-decoder mechanism works for AI. I can't say that biological systems use this exact same mechanism. I would assume that they use a variation of this mechanism, but encoder and a decoder is what I use, and it's what works here. And then so what I find in my assumption, my further assumption then within that, is that oftentimes, like, what we consider forgetting is not that the memory isn't encoded. The memory gets encoded, right? So you have an interaction with your environment, action takes place, you encode the memory, but you encode the memory sparsely. You encode parts of the memory. You don't encode the whole thing. You encode a probabilistic wheel of the memory, right? And then when you go to decode, you spin the probabilistic wheel, and then you're recalling the individual elements of the memory. And then every single time that you do that, it's probabilistic. So you change the memory every single time that you do that. all of this aligns with how my memory works. I don't know how your memory works, but I mean, I'm just explaining my memory, right, overall. And then so within that, this entire system aligns kind of just with how my brain operates. And then within this, I take it to the next level within that. And I look at platonic chairs. This is the simple example, right? Platonic form of chairs. Let's say that we have a data set of 100 chairs. And then we have one model with perfect memory and one model with sparse memory, with human memory, right? Probabilistic memory. And the model that is trained on 100 chairs, my assumption is that it will get 100% accuracy every single time on those 100 chairs, and then near 0% accuracy if you show it a chair that's even like 5% different than those 100 chairs. Whereas my assumption is with my upfront assumption would be with this sparse attention, like kind of like the probabilistic attention, that maybe the recall rate of the chairs would be like more like 98% in the data set, but then I would get like 30% if I had it across all chairs, right? And it would lead towards generalization, because the sparsity of the memory itself, to me, in this concept, is what leads to the generalization, and that's the big like thing, right? If you like, sparse memories force generalization of the concept and of the data set, and rather than memorization. If you don't have sparse memories, you just have rote memorization. Why would you not? And then so it's a feature and not a bug to do this. And then so let me break this down and prove this out on models. And so I prove this out across, like, I use 3 different models, 2 different data sets, and like multiple different architectures to just prove this in a multitude of different ways, right? So this first experiment is just a very simple data set with random sequences, random labels, very small model, very simple model, right? Like super simple. And then so I just define, and I have 2 models running. So the exact memory model, and then the Lossy model, the probabilistic model, where I'm injecting stochastic noise into the memory representations. So when it goes to recall and reconstruct the decoder, I'm injecting some noise in there, right? And then so that's what I'm doing. And then so I'm important within this first experiment, no noise in the encoder, only in the decoder. But then so we do this, and then the model, it's a small model again, right? But so 19.4% accuracy on the model that's like the baseline, and 19.6% accuracy on the model where we're injecting the noise. So your intuitive thought would be that these would be the opposite, right? And then so we're seeing a slight increase. Now let's see if this is an anomaly. Let's take a bigger model, better data set. I'll use fashion MNIST. We'll make this model bigger and better, but then these same type of things, right? So then I'll have the feed-forward network, but we'll do the same thing where we have this lossy compression, and then so we're going to add more loss to this, right? So I'll have a lossy compression on the encoder, and then I'll do the same thing that we did with the stochastic noise on the decoder. So in this instance, we're introducing noise in the encoder and the decoder, and then we're seeing what happens here, right? And on a bigger model, and then so we go through, and result is 95.85% accuracy on the base model, 96.51% accuracy on the sparser model. So again, an improvement by doing this, right? So then let's take this up. These are our very small improvements, but twice we're seeing improvement here. So then let's kind of take this to the extreme, right? And then so I build out an even better model, and I put even more differentiation. So more lossy noise into the encoder and the decoder, and then lossiness, kind of like a little bit of lossiness in the training itself, and then same result, 92.19% on the baseline model, 92.44% on the model that's more sparse, and then so again, 3 tests in a row, we get it out, right? So let me do kind of the ultimate test. Let me build like this full model on this, and then let me gear the data set to favor the baseline model in this instance. So I'm going to go back to a synthetic data set, and I'll use repeating patterns within the data set. That's the data set, right? My assumption is that like a probabilistic model is going to struggle with that a bit more, because you're going to want like the exact pattern. And then so we go through, apply dropout during training and testing. I'm applying dropout everywhere, right? I have just like let's go like make this crazy. Oh, and then I also introduce sparsity as well. And then so a big thing within this is that like two things within the human brain that are kind of calculations within this are: one, that the human brain operates off of probabilistic memory, and two, that the human brain actually prefers sparse memories, and it creates a sparsity, and it prefers a sparsity. And we do notice this within AI models. They do prefer sparsity. Why? I couldn't tell you, but it's counterintuitive, right? And sparsity in this instance is very straightforward. So if we have, let's say, I'm going to make it a very simple, like a very narrowly simplistic example. We have 10 parameters that we're looking at, right? And then for a question, we give it the question, and then 7 of those parameters fire with probably like 0.5 or higher, because we normalize between 0 and 1. And then 3 of them fire like just like a 0.1 or a 0.2. So we take those 3 that fired like a 0.1 or a 0.2, and we just set them to 0. Like 0.1 or 2.2 isn't changing the data set that much. We're flat out, we make them sparse, right? Just cut them out. Like, so essentially, and then like, so we're making the weights more sparse. We're setting some weights artificially to 0, like weights that are insignificant in the equation. We're just removing them entirely. And then when we do this, we get, so standard model accuracy 45.75, Lossy model accuracy 48.5, 45 to 49%. 4% increase by doing things that you would think intuitively would make your model worse. So here it is for you. And then this is just testing the data set, right? Like, how do you, I mean, I don't know a good way to test it. Like, there isn't, if you know a good way to test this, let me know. And there might be other ways that I could do this. Like, one I'm just thinking as I do this in my head would be possibly to like break up the fashion MNIST data set, right? Because my initial thought was that there's not like fashion MNIST 1, fashion MNIST 2, fashion MNIST 3, fashion MNIST 4, but why couldn't there be? So you could do that and experiment with that as the next step. So I think that would be interesting as a next step experiment within this. As I'm talking this out and laying this out, would be to like split a data set in half, train a model on half the data set, and then test it on the unseen half. Would be a beautiful test to do as a follow-up within this. And I think you're going to see even more amazing results and even more disparity than we're looking at here with this 4% increase. I think you probably see, and that would give you what your actual generalization increase would be, which I assume is going to be much higher, right? It could be 20, 30% higher than what you would see as far as a baseline, and would be my assumptions within this. And if this is all proving out, right, that there's something with lossiness and memory, which it all plays out with the sparsity, right? It lines with sparsity. So here it is. My assumption is that lossy memory is a feature and not a bug. And if you like this type of content, please like and subscribe. Thank you very much.